The Gauntlet Grandmaster speedrunning tasks. Quite a difficult challenge. I'm sure we've all had moments like these. Just on pace and then bam, 115 damage to the face. But in this guide, I'm going to do my best to turn you into a gamer that can get the sub 630 and the sub 4. No problem. This is the Grandmaster speedrun guide for Gauntlet and Corrupted Gauntlet. Enjoy. Welcome to my series of guides for combat achievements. We'll be looking at how to do the sub 4 gauntlet and the sub 630 corrupted gauntlet tasks. This guide will be split into 3 sections. First, the speedrunning tips and tricks section for saving time during prep. Then we will cover the prep strategy for regular gauntlet and the prep strategy for corrupted gauntlet, as they differ a bit. Then, the boss tips and tricks section to help you make less mistakes during the boss. Before we get into all that, let's start with a rating as usual. The regular gauntlet is an 8 out of 10 RNG wise, while corrupted gauntlet is a 7 out of 10. There's a bit more RNG to the regular gauntlet with resetting for a good enough prep, as we can only check very few rooms, and the demi-boss cannot take too long to kill. But corrupted gauntlet has a lot more resources we need, but we have so much more time that the prep tends to be a little more forgiving. Skill wise, this boss is an 8 out of 10 for regular and a 9 out of 10 for corrupt. Prep is a similar difficulty, with regular being more simple but faster paced, and corrupt being more complicated but slower paced. The corrupted Hunlift is much tougher to do fast without messing up, although corrupted gauntlet prep allows for getting double tier freeze, avoiding the need for 5-1 and a lot of runs, which simplifies the boss a bit, but it is still tougher overall. Keep in mind, these ratings are adjustable based on your skill for the boss. The skill rating assumes you miss about 5 ticks on regular gauntlet, 10 on corrupt, can get some redemptions off, and rarely take damage from tornadoes or the floor. If you play better, there's less RNG required. If you play worse, there's more RNG required. As you do more gauntlet and learn from these tips, you will likely improve anyways. But even a run full of mistakes can get the time with good RNG. Now let's move on to the speedrun tips and tricks. There are 10 tips and tricks that 9 out of 10 dentists agree that doctors hate. Some of these may seem minor, but every second saved during prep increases your odds on the boss quite a bit. Number 1, monsters tend to interrupt your skill and actions, so you usually want to spam click to avoid being interrupted. Number 2, normally it takes 3 ticks to gather a resource, but if you do it while fighting a monster, you can gather a resource in just 1 tick. Whenever attacking a monster, if you stand beside a skill and resource before your next attack is ready, you can collect the resource instantly on the tick that your next attack would have been. So if you attack with a 4-tick weapon, you're attacking on the first tick, you have 3 ticks to run to the skill and resource, and then you can click to collect it on the 5th tick. You can also just spam click after making it there. You can click back on the monster as soon as you get the resource to attack the monster 1 tick later, and then once again, collect the resource on the 5th tick. This takes 5 ticks, but normally you attack every 4 ticks, so you're only spending 1 extra tick to collect a resource in addition to attacking. Also note that if you try to attack a monster 2 ticks after collecting a resource while in the process of gathering another resource, your character will turn to look at the monster without attacking. If you do this accidentally, just quickly click back on the resource to collect it on the 3rd tick as if nothing happened. The scepter is a 5-tick weapon, so you can gather resources every 6 tick with this method. When using this method, it may be good to unequip the scepter in certain situations, as punching is a 4-tick attack, and will let you gather resources faster. Number 3, if you are gathering a resource, you can click on the resource again right as you get one, then click to move so that you are standing beside the resource on another location, or standing beside a different resource, and then click on the resource you are beside to gather it. This lets you move once every time you gather a resource, while continuing to gather a resource without losing any ticks. Number 4, when fishing without a monster interrupting your actions, you can save ticks with a vial filling trick. Run to a nearby fishing pool by using a vial on it, and let your character fill up all the vials they have, and as soon as they finish, click to fish again, and you will instantly get a fish. You may need to spam click afterwards to continue fishing. You can also start fishing first, and right after getting a fish, click to use the vial on the fishing pool, and as soon as you fill up all your vials, click back to fish like explained before. Number 5. When moving between rooms, you can click to run inside the doorway, and as you enter the doorway threshold, you can click to light up the next room. This way your character keeps moving forwards and doesn't waste time moving sideways to light the door from a front side. Number 6. Monsters will drop loot on their southwest tile. However, the ranger and bear will drop it in the center tile. and the Magi will drop it in their northeast center tile. Take advantage of this and move there as soon as the monster dies to start picking up loot faster. Number 7. Your character can shoot at the same time they move if they are 1 or 2 tiles away from seeing the monster, either from being too far away or from a corner blocking line of sight. Take advantage of this to get a free hit off while running towards the next area while keeping moving. Number 8. Sometimes it may be better to avoid finishing off a monster and just let it keep following you. And once you're gathering a resource or fighting a demi-boss, the monster can catch up and you can kill it. That way you don't have to run back for what it drops, which will waste a lot of time. Number 9. If desperate for shards, you can kill another demi-boss and use a pestle and mortar on a special drop for 80 shards. However, this is often too slow. Just be aware of a feature for niche situations. Number 10. There is a resource tracking plugin on Runelite I like to use. It's called the Gauntlet on the plugin hub. It can show an overlay over the resources so you can notice them quicker and be able to correct your movement faster. You can play around with the settings. I find these settings nice. However, this is completely optional. That is all the various speedrun tips and tricks that you will want to employ on all your preps. Now let's move on to covering the actual prep method for both regular and corrupt gauntlet. Starting with regular gauntlet. First of all, it's very important that you know how many shards you will need, as you need to go fast and can't be spending forever standing around figuring out what you need. The goal is to prep 1 potion, about 7 food, at least 2 weapons, with 1 being tier 3, and the other being at least tier 1 if doing 5 to 1, but at least tier 2 if not doing 5 to 1. That's 20 shards for a potion, 80 shards for a tier 3, and 20 to 80 shards for the second weapon, for a total of 120 to 180 shards. If you end up with a tier 3 halberd and extra weapon frame, you can spend 20 shards on making a bow instead of 60 shards on upgrading the staff, saving 40 shards and improving boss DPS with 5 to 1. If you don't have a tier 3 halberd, making a third weapon is still a DPS boost for 5 to 1. Rather than thinking about the total amount, I find it simpler to think about how much I need after what I make at the start. If I make a tier 1 weapon, a vial, and grind up the dust, I only need 80 more shards to make another weapon and upgrade one of them to tier 3. If I need to upgrade both, I need a total of 140 shards. So most runs, you will simply need to think, I need 80 shards before I teleport back, or I need 140 shards before I teleport back. Also, I recommend that you grind up the dust as soon as you can after making your initial items to simplify figuring out how many shards you have left. If you end up making a tier 2 staff right away, or you make a staff but no vial, etc., the numbers will be different. Just add or subtract from the usual amount you need, or simply add the cost of everything you have left. Do whatever is more intuitive for you. There's also a plugin on Runelite that can help with resource tracking. Feel free to use this as well if you wish. Personally, I find it distracting. Now that that's out of the way, we can go through the general method. First of all, your goal prep will be 145 or faster. The various weapon combinations you may have, excluding double tier 3s, will range from a 12 to 18% chance of success at finishing the boss fast enough on a 2-minute prep, whereas a 145 prep varies from 32 to 42%. This assumes 7 fish, 1 redemption, and 5 ticks lost throughout the fight. I don't recommend going for double tier 3s on regular gauntlet, as the boss has too little HP for the extra DPS to make up for how long the demi-boss takes to kill. For the reason as to why we go with a specific prep amount and time goal, here are some graphs from the simulations. I will have a link in the description if you wish to see the spreadsheet of data for more precise values. This shows the survival rate of various setups using 0 to 12 food and 1 redemption max. You can see that by 9 food, even the worst method has around a 90% success rate, and we're starting to see some serious diminishing returns. Now let's look at a graph which looks at just one of the methods so the graph isn't too confusing. At the top is a line showing the survival rate, and the bottom 3 times show a chance of getting sub 2, sub 215, and sub 230, based on the various amounts of food. Around 6 to 7 food, there are some serious diminishing returns on the chance of a run being fast enough, despite the survival rate going up. This is because if a boss is fast enough, the boss has less time to hurt us, so we're more likely to run out of time before running out of food. Extra food is only helpful if you take damage from the floor or tornadoes, or if you have an incredibly fast prep that can afford a slower boss kill. Lastly, here's a graph showing the chance of various speedrun times with the different setups. These setups use 5 to 1 except for the halberd setup and the double tier 3 setup. Aside from the double tier 3s, we can see that a 215 boss has about 32 to 42% success rate of being fast enough, and this success rate rapidly goes down as we aim for a faster boss. So a 145 prep is our goal, to avoid prep requiring too much RNG. And a sub 2 prep still has enough of a chance to still attempt the boss though, especially if you have one of the stronger setups. Slower than 2-man prep, we start to see pretty low success rates on the boss being fast enough. Anyways, on to the prep. Start by pre-venging and saying quick prayer to melee plus piety. Use accurate for your scepter and your punch. As soon as you enter Gauntlet, enter the closest room, ideally a side room, but it's okay to check the room opposite the boss sometimes. If there are no monsters in the first room, reset. If there are monsters, your goal is to get at least 20 shards and a weapon frame. Ideally 80 plus shards to make tier 2 staff. Even better, 90 plus to make a vial as well. Avoid picking up teleport crystals as this wastes time. If there are resources you need, gather them while killing the monsters with the tick manipulation trick we covered earlier, taking off the scepter for the resources other than herbs. If there are resources you don't need, gather them only if convenient to do while killing the monsters with tick manipulation, for the sake of extra shards to increase your chance of making a tier 2 weapon. Once you're done with skilling and gathering aggro of the monsters, try to finish off any remaining monsters as close to the starting room as possible to save time. Once you have a weapon frame and are satisfied with your shard count, head into the start room. If you seem likely to get enough shards for a tier 2 staff, then finish off the remaining monsters, otherwise don't waste your time. Reset if you don't have at least this much time left on the clock when you go through the doorway back into the main room. If you get a herb or some fresh fish, it's okay to be a bit slower, as now you have some less resources to worry about later. This part doesn't need to be super precise. I was pretty undecided on the exact times I want to put here, and I erred on the side of faster times, so if you're off by even 5 seconds, that's fine. This is just giving you a general idea of what times you want to be getting, so don't worry about it too much. Now, make your initial items. Staff is much stronger at tier 1 and tier 2 compared to the other weapons, so always make the staff at the start. At tier 3 they are very similar. Always prioritize making the best staff you can make. If you don't have enough left to make a vial, you can make a vial later. Once done, leave for the room opposite of the Hunlet, and remember to crush some crystal dust as soon as you can. Also drop tools you no longer need as you go. The demi-bosses only spawn on the outer wall on the 3 middle rooms of each side. Prep must be very fast, so we are taking a direct route to the demi-bosses here. If you see resources you need on the way, gather them. Kill monsters while doing it if possible. If no monsters are on you, remember the vial filling trick. If there is a resource near the entrance to the outer wall, check the room first in case there's a demi-boss that you can fight while gathering a resource to save ticks. Once you check the room, if there is a demi-boss, kill it while gathering any resources, and checking what is in the upper rooms if you still need resources. If you check all 3 of the outer rooms and there are no demi-bosses, reset. If you have a tier 1 weapon, you usually want to venge the demi-boss. If food is looking sparse, especially if you have a tier 2 weapon, then consider saving your venge. Once you kill the demi-boss, pick up the loot and continue searching for any remaining shards or resources you need, with the goal of ending up at around 7 fish after healing up if you took a venge. Also be sure to make your potion whenever you have a chance, either while running or while fighting a demi-boss. You want to teleport back at around 8:30 to be able to get around a 145 prep. Any sub 2 prep is worth still attempting the boss at least. 4 or more food is still pretty good. I teleport as soon as the timer is close to 8:30 and start prepping. Anything less than 4 food and you really need to get some good RNG, and try to conserve prayer to go for more redemptions. But if the time is catching up to you, you can just send it and hope for the best. If a demi-boss is a bear and you are very low on shards with a tier 1 staff, either attack while moving or just ignore the bear and check the other rooms. A bear means you must make both of your weapons into tier 2, so you'll need at least 140 shards, and the bear only drops 30 to 60 shards or so only kill the bear if you already have a tier 2 staff, or if you have a decent shard count. If in this situation and there are no upper demi-bosses, you can kill the bear and hope you manage to get the shards. Once you teleport back, run to either the crafting bowl or the cooking range. Go to the one away from a boss to save time. However, if you didn't make a vial beforehand, go to the crafting bowl first regardless of direction. When you run to the cooking range, you will cook 2 fish on the first tick you run into it. But if you're standing beside it and then click to cook, you will not get this small bonus. Don't forget to fill your vial if you did not fill it yet. Try to memorize the buttons you need to press to speed up crafting your items, though it's not necessary if you prefer memorizing where to click. If a potion is not made yet, only make it if you can without losing ticks on the way to the boss. Otherwise, make it after you get into the boss room while fighting the boss. Now the prep is complete. Good luck on the boss with your hopefully 145 prep. Try to conserve prayer as best as you can during prep without losing ticks. It will help you in the boss room. If you end up with extra shards and an extra weapon frame, you can make a halberd to use for 5-to-1 instead of punching. If a halberd is your tier 3 weapon, you can use an extra weapon frame to make a bow, so you have all 3 weapons and can do 5-to-1 with a tier 3 halberd. Now for the general prep method for a Corrupted Gauntlet. A lot of the info will be similar to the regular Gauntlet prep, but in case you are only interested in Corrupted Gauntlet, I will include all of the info in this section rather than skipping the repeat information. First of all, it's very important you know how many shards you will need, as you need to go fast and can't be spending forever standing around figuring out what you need. The goal is to prep 2 potions, about 7 food, at least 2 weapons with one being tier 3, and the other being at least tier 1 if doing 5 to 1, at least tier 2 if not doing 5 to 1. That's 40 shards for 2 potions, 80 shards for a tier 3, and 20 to 80 shards for the second weapon, for a total of 140 to 200 shards. We will also want armor, which is 120 shards total and 3 of each resource, bringing us up to 260 to 320 shards. If you end up with a tier 3 halberd and an extra weapon frame, you can spend 20 shards on making a bow instead of 60 shards on upgrading the staff, saving 40 shards and improving boss DPS with 5 to 1. If you don't have a tier 3 halberd, making a third weapon is still a DPS boost for 5 to 1. Rather than thinking about the total amount, I find it simpler to think about how much I need after what I make at the start. If I make a tier 1 weapon, 2 vials, and I grind up the dust, I try to grind up the dust as soon as I can after making the initial items to simplify what's left. I only need 80 more shards to make another weapon and upgrade one of them to tier 3, and 120 shards for the armor, for a total of 200 shards. If I need to upgrade both, I need a total of 260 shards. So most runs, you will simply need to think, I need 200 shards right before I teleport back, or I need 260 shards before I teleport back. If you end up making a tier 2 staff right away, or if you make a staff but no vial, or just 1 vial, etc., the numbers will be different. Just add or subtract from the usual amount you need, or simply add up the cost of everything you have left to do. Do whatever is more intuitive for you. There's also a plugin on Runelight that can help with resource tracking. Feel free to use this as well, though I find it distracting. Now that that's out of the way, we can go through the general method. First of all, your goal prep will be 3 minutes for 5 to 1 with a tier 3 and a tier 1 weapon, or tier 3 with a tier 2 weapon if you don't have 5 to 1. This will give you a 25 to 30% success rate on the boss being fast enough, depending which weapons you have. Doing 5 to 1 with a tier 3 and tier 2 weapon can bring this up to 38%. You will want 330 for double tier 3 weapons. This will give you about a 26% success rate on the boss being quick enough. This assumes 7 fish, 3 redemptions at most, and 10 ticks lost throughout the fight. I recommend always going for double tier 3 weapons if you find 2 demi-bosses and you aren't low on shards. With a tier 1 staff, the average time save is about even, but with a tier 2 it saves some time. Either way, it makes the boss fight easier and more consistent while giving you more time to check rooms and gather resources as you fight the demi-boss. For the reason we use these specific amounts of supplies and weapons, here are some graphs of the simulations. I will have a link in the description if you wish to see the spreadsheet of data for more precise values. First, we see a graph showing the survival rate based on food, assuming 3 redemptions max. We see some serious diminishing returns around 9 to 10 food. Now, we look at a graph showing just the tier 3 bow with tier 1 staff to avoid a confusing graph. The top line is the survival rate, and the bottom 3 are the chances of sub 315, sub 330, and sub 345. We see very diminishing returns beyond 7 food for the chance of a boss being quick enough, despite the survival rate going up. This is because if a boss is fast enough, the boss has less time to hurt us, so we're more likely to run out of time before running out of food. Extra food is only helpful if you take damage from a floor or tornadoes, or if you have an incredibly fast prep that can afford a slower boss kill. Lastly, here's a graph showing the chance of various speedrun times with the different setups. These setups use 5 to 1 except for the halberd setup and the double tier 3 setup. Aside from the double tier 3s, we can see that a 330 boss has about 25 to 38% success rate of being fast enough, and the success rate rapidly goes down as we aim for a faster boss. Double tier 3s use a 26% success rate for a 3-minute boss, so a 3-minute prep is our goal, or a 330 prep in the case of double tier 3s, to avoid prep requiring too much RNG. If a prep is a bit slow, it can still be worth sending, but beyond 10 to 15 seconds slow, it starts to get very low success rates. Also, upgrading punch to a halberd or upgrading a tier 1 weapon to a tier 2 weapon saves about 5 seconds on the boss. Anyways, on to the prep. Start by pre-venging and saying quick pair to melee plus piety. Use accurate for your scepter and your punch. As soon as you enter a gauntlet, enter the closest room. Ideally a side room, but it's okay to check the room opposite the boss sometimes. If there are no monsters in the first room, reset. If there are monsters, your goal is to get at least 20 shards and a weapon frame. Ideally 80 plus shards to make tier 2 staff, even better 100 plus to make vials too. Avoid picking up teleport crystals as this wastes time. If there are resources you need, gather them while killing the monsters with the tick manipulation trick we covered earlier. Taking off a scepter for resources other than herbs. You can even gather resources that you need after the monsters are dead, as there's a lot of resources we want. If there are resources you don't need, gather them only if convenient to do so while killing the monsters with tick manipulation, for the sake of extra shards to increase your chance of making a tier 2 weapon. Once you're done upskilling and gathering aggro of the monsters, try to finish off any remaining monsters as close to the starting room as possible to save time. Once you have a weapon frame and are satisfied with your shard count, head into the start room. If you seem likely to get enough shards for a tier 2 staff, then finish off the remaining monsters. Otherwise, don't waste your time. Reset if you don't have at least this much time left on the clock when you go through the doorway back into the main room. The reset times for Corrupted are a little more generous at the start to make up for how often the later part of the prep ends in a reset due to a resource not being found. You can be a bit slower based on how many useful resources you gather. This part doesn't need to be super precise, and picking the exact number was hard, so just use this as a guideline. This is just giving you a general idea of what times you want to be getting for this initial room. You don't have to be too strict, but if you're often too slow in your total prep times, maybe try being more strict on the times you reset for. Now, make your initial items. Staff is much stronger at tier 1 and tier 2 compared to the other weapons, so always make the staff at the start. At tier 3, they are very similar. Always prioritize making the best staff you can make. If you don't have enough left to make vials, you can make the vials later. For simplicity, I tend to avoid making vials if I only have enough for one vial. After making your starting items, go to the room opposite the Hunlift. Remember to keep up all the speedrun tricks discussed earlier. Do your best to get a chance to fill the vials, as inventory space gets rough if you can't put the herbs inside it. Remember to crush the 20 crystal dust as soon as you can. Also drop tools you no longer need as you go. Keep in mind the demibosses spawn only on the outer wall, on the 3 middle rooms of each side. If there are any resources in the first half of a room that you need, gather them right away while attacking a monster if there are any. Make your way to the second half of a room while being sure to open the nearest side room. If a side room looks promising based on what you still need, go to the side room first and gather any resources you still need in the lower half of a room, and then open up a demi-boss room. Most of the time, it's best to go to the side room first, so if ever unsure, just do that. If it doesn't have anything you need and you have quite a few resources already, you can optionally gather the rest of the resources in this room while opening up the upper room to hopefully find a demi-boss a little quicker. Whether you stay in the middle room or went to the side room, once you open up the demi-boss room, if there's a demi-boss, kill it while checking the side rooms and gathering resources. If food is kinda low, especially if you have a tier 2 staff, you can consider saving your Venge. Otherwise, you can use the Venge. Then explore the remaining demi-boss rooms with the same procedure. Your goal is to get at least one tier 3 weapon, enough shards, which is usually 200 or 260, and all your resources for the armor, 2 potions, and 7 fish. If you have everything else and can't find a second demi-boss in those first 3 rooms, just teleport and make your items. However, if you're missing resources after having checked the 3 demi-boss rooms, then make your way to another demi-boss section while searching for the missing resources. That way, if you go very dry on resources, you may have a chance to at least get a second tier 3 weapon while gathering them. Oftentimes, having to explore this many rooms ends up being too slow unless the beginning of a prep was very fast. So hopefully you find all your resources before this point. If all you're missing is your fish count is a bit low, keep in mind it takes about 15 plus or minus a few seconds to make all your things and enter the boss room after teleporting. So if you have 4:45 on the clock or 4:15 on the clock with double tier freeze, I recommend just teleporting and hoping for good RNG. If you have 4 plus fish, some good RNG can still save you, especially if you get some extra redemptions off. Ideally you want around 7 fish per boss plus extra fish to heal up any Venge damage you took, and hopefully free redemptions on the boss, but getting some extra fish in case of mistakes can be nice if you still have some time to spare on the prep goal time. Also keep in mind, if you have double tier freeze, it speeds up the fight, so if you normally go for extra fish in case of mistakes, you won't need as much extra fish if you have double tier freeze. If you only have 1 potion instead of 2, you can send it and hope for the best, though you will need to pray flick and can only redemption when very low on prayer, as at 99 prayer, a potion recovers 31 prayer points, which is about 40 seconds with a tier 3 weapon, tier 1 armor, protection prayer, and offense prayer on. So a free dose potion gives you 2 minutes of fighting, plus some time for how many prayer points you started with. You'd have to start the fight with nearly 70 prayer points for a free dose potion to last 3.5 minutes comfortably without flicking, or about 46 prayer points for a 3-minute fight. Once you teleport, go to either the crafting bowl or the cooking range. Go to the one far away from the boss first. If you need to heal a lot of HP, you can heal while cooking by clicking to eat and clicking the range on the same tick. If you need to make vials, then go to the crafting bowl first, and remember to fill your vials when going to the cooking area. When you run to the cooking range, you will cook 2 fish on the first tick that you run into it. Memorize either the buttons to press to make what you need to make, or memorize where to click. Also, a common mistake is to not click enough times to fully upgrade a weapon, so know in advance how many times you need to click. Also, if you have spare shards and a spare weapon frame, you can make all 3 weapons and have a slight boost to DPS with 5 to 1. Although if you have 2 tier 3 weapons, there is no point in doing this. If your potions aren't made yet, you can try to make them while running to the boss room, but most of the time I find myself just making them after getting inside the boss room, as not losing ticks is the priority. You are now ready to fight the Corrupted Gauntlet. Hopefully with a fast enough prep for good odds of a fast enough boss. Even if a prep is slow, you can always get lucky with a fast boss fight, especially with double tier freeze, and practice is always good, so at this point finish the run either way. Now we've covered both the prep for regular and corrupted gauntlet, let's move on to the boss itself. The boss will always start with range, so pray range at the start. Make sure you have close to full HP before starting. As you start to enter the room, you can already click to attack the boss, as this timing shows. Take advantage of a slow start of a fight to fix your inventory. Put your potions where your protection prayers are, so if your redemption goes off, it's easier to turn your prayers back on faster. I like to put my weapons at the top with a gap beside them for when I unequip to punch. The boss can attack from the full length of the boss room, -1, so he will only move if you stand under him or if he's touching a wall and you stand on the opposite wall. If the boss is touching a wall at the start, I recommend being mindful of where you drag him, as some positions you may find easier for dodging tornadoes while attacking. If possible, try to get him in a position where he's 1 away from a corner, like this, as this position works very well for tornadoes. If against the wall with a 0, 1, or 2 tile gap with a nearby wall, you can easily pull him into the right spot. He will align his southwest tile with you, so you'll either need to run to the tile 1 away from the wall, or the tile where the half of a door closer to the wall is, whichever is lined up better with his southwest tile. If it's impossible to drag him into the spot, then if you want, you can briefly step under him, and then quickly step out. I've heard some hardcores purposely set him up like this, but doing so in a speedrun without losing ticks or getting stomped is tricky. I usually don't bother. The boss's projectile lands 1 tick faster if you stand 1 to 2 tiles away, so try to stand within this range when going for redemptions, so you have more time to get your prayer back up. Sometimes when your prayer turns off from redemption, it can be a bit finicky turning it back on really fast, so be mindful of this, especially when going for redemptions from further away. I recommend not going for redemptions during tornadoes unless very confident or desperate for help. Also be mindful of your prayer. With 1 redemption for normal and 3 for corrupt, you should be okay, but if you enter the fight with low prayer and constantly redemption on like 30 plus prayer points, you will run out of prayer, so be mindful of how much prayer is left and how much time you have left to kill the boss. Also, redemptions are not required. Just be aware each redemption is worth 1 food and saves 1.8 seconds, less if it makes you hit the boss without your offensive prayer. So if you don't do redemptions, treat it as having 1 less food per redemption. Also, if a boss brings you to too low to redemption safely, instead of eating right away, you can tick eat the boss's hit to lower his max hit for about 1 hit. For 5 to 1, having the prep counter helps a lot. There's a RuneLight plugin you can use, or you can use this website, which will be in the description. I personally just use the website because opening the RuneLight sidebar messes up my stream capture. You can still do 5 to 1 without it if you wish. If you don't know what 5 to 1 is, it is basically hitting the boss 5 times with your strong weapon, and then once with a weak weapon it's not praying against. The boss changes prayer after 6 off prayer hits based on the last attack you used, so it will never pray against your strong weapon. Do your best during 5 to 1 to keep count. Practice helps a lot, but if ever unsure, it may be better to risk a couple hits with a weak weapon instead of accidentally making the boss pray against your good weapon. Also be careful of over-focusing on redemption and losing count of 5 to 1. If supplies are looking good deep into the fight, don't overdo it trying to get a redemption and then being caught off guard. Also, only redemption if a Hunlef can't one-hit you. The only time you should take a risk is if supplies are looking rough for how much of a fight is left and you feel like you need to get this redemption off before using another potion sip up. Always be mindful of when you will need to melee next. Even if I'm not doing 5 to 1, if I have a halberd, I will still count the hits in my head so that I know when I need to start meleeing. So if tornadoes are chasing me or the floor is just blocking me, I can start managing my position and the tornado position a couple hits beforehand, so I can start meleeing when I need to. The toughest part of a fight will be the tornado dodging without losing DPS. One wrong move against a stack of tornadoes can instantly end a run no matter how good the run is. First of all, be aware of a requirement for a tornado to hit you. a tornado can only hit you if you and the tornado will occupy the same tile on the same tick. This means if you stand still while a tornado is one tile away from you, it will hit you. However, if you are constantly moving, a tornado can only hit you if you move to the same tile it's trying to move to. If timed correctly, you can even walk back and forth between the same two tiles with a tornado following you forever without hitting you. Be aware, sometimes it's hard to tell the exact position of your player or the exact position of a tornado as it's moving between tiles, so it can be easy to misjudge what is safe. Secondly, be aware of how tornadoes move. Monsters will move diagonally to line up with a player, and then move in a straight line. Players will move in a straight line until they are lined up diagonally, and then they will move diagonally the rest of the way. Tornadoes move in a way that's in between a player and an NPC. This image shows how they move, and a basic idea of their pathing is all you really need. Credit to Mathum for this image. I was partway through making my own image when I found out they already made one a while back, and this one wasn't an MS Paint monstrosity. In case you're curious, I will give a bit of analysis of this image, but once again, just understanding the basic idea that they move weirdly is fine, so ignore it if it's confusing. They move in a straight line if they are over twice as far from a player in the long direction, as they are in the short direction. So if they are 5 west and 2 north of us, they would move in a straight line 1 east. When the long direction is less than twice as big as the short direction, they move diagonally. So if the tornado is 5 west and 3 north of us, it moves diagonally to 4 west, 2 north. When a tornado is exactly twice as far in the long direction as in the short direction, then the way they move depends where they are in a quadrant. If you divide this image into 4 quarters, and divide each quarter in half on the diagonal like a pizza, they move diagonally in the counterclockwise half of a quarter, but in a straight line, in the clockwise half of a quarter. It's hard to think about this while fighting the Gauntlet, so just have a basic idea of how the tornadoes move, and you're good to go. Now that you understand the tornadoes, here's how you deal with them. Your goal is to always create a gap between you and the tornadoes. NPCs path to wherever you were at the start of a tick, and even tornadoes can only path in a direction that puts them closer to you. So if you're directly south of a tornado, it can only move south towards you. So if you run 2 tiles west, the tornado will move 1 tile south. And now you have a 1 tile gap between you and the tornado. So now you can attack the Gauntlet, and even though you're standing still, the tornado won't hit you because of that gap. It will just close the gap and get into melee distance, and then after attacking you can immediately run, as the tornado moves onto the tile you used to be standing on. This is the basis of tornado dodging. You want to get into a position where you know without a doubt that if you move 2 tiles away in a certain direction, you will have a gap, and then you can attack safely. Manually pathing each tick helps a lot with this, compared to clicking very far away. Here's another example of me creating a gap for myself to avoid the tornadoes. As you can see here, they spawn. My weapon's not ready yet, so I move again. Still knowing that I will have a gap when I move those 2 tiles. And just every time I'm attacking, I just like to have a good habit of moving 2 tiles from where I'm standing just to be extra sure that I will have a gap. Now sure, sometimes you have a big open area and you can honestly just book it real far away and be fine. But particularly in the later part of a fight, when the floor starts speeding up and there's more tornadoes, being able to attack the Gauntlet with only a small space to work with is very important. A common thing to watch out for is if a tornado spawns 1 tile away from you. You have no choice but to run right away even if it means missing a hit. Fortunately, because it's moving to the tile you're standing on, moving 2 tiles in any direction creates a gap, allowing you to hit the boss right after moving if your weapon is ready. Whenever the boss spawns tornadoes, be ready to click to move just in case you get a tornado spawn like that. Also, be very careful to never run yourself into a trap. Common mistake is seeing the nice thin hallway between the boss and the wall, and then you run into the corner planning to run around the boss, but suddenly the floor turns into danger, and you have no choice but to run under the Gauntlet, potentially getting stomped. Avoid going into areas you can't immediately escape from. Another thing, if you can't find a safe way to attack, you can always eat a piece of food while running to avoid missing ticks. Keep in mind, the delay for eating takes into account how long it's been since you last attacked. So if you attack on tick 0, you'll be ready to attack on tick 4. But if you eat before then, you get delayed by 3 ticks and are ready to attack on tick 7. But if you were to miss your chance to attack on tick 4, but you didn't eat until 6, rather than adding 3 ticks to 6 and making you attack on tick 9, you'll still be able to attack on tick 7. You can even eat on tick 7 and hit the boss on tick 7. If you click the food and then click on the boss in the same tick right before tick 7. So feel free to prioritize running to safety first. And then if you messed Up to 3 ticks, you can just cancel the missed ticks by eating and then attacking, and it's just as if you ate earlier. Keep in mind, losing a tick or two is always preferable to taking tornado damage, so if ever in a rough situation, especially on a really good run, just play it safe. You can even skip eating the food if it's a particularly awkward spot and you need full focus on movement. The same applies for floors. The floors that appear later on in Corrupted Gauntlet are so fast that you may need to move right away, and don't stop moving until you escape. During the last part, when the floors start to change very fast, at 1/3 boss HP, as I'm making this video for 2 tiles that are 3 tiles away from a door on each side, we'll never have a danger tile cover them up. So standing on these tiles while fighting the boss can be nice for the last third of the boss. The last thing to go over is using the halberd effectively. The halberd can certainly be a tricky weapon to use in a speedrun where you don't want to ever stop attacking. One useful trick is the Wook's Walk. This can be really helpful in certain situations to maintain DPS. However, it is risky as one mistake means all the NATOs will hit you, and changing prayers or eating during it can mess up your rhythm, and quick changing floors can also mess you up. I highly recommend practicing the Wook's Walk in runs with less potential before trying it in a run that's very close to finishing the boss fast enough. Also, remember the awkward tornado pathing mentioned before. If tornadoes are moving from your side, then you can Wook's Walk safely. However, if a tornado is coming at you from the same direction you're moving in, your Wook's Walk might hit the tornado. In this case, you can try a Wook's Walk while moving 1 or 2 tiles over each time, away from a tornado that's coming towards you, until the tornado is trapped in the Wook's Walk. Now, you certainly don't need to Wook's Walk with a halberd. You can often just use up some food during tough parts to stall a bit, but you can also just use the gap rule. Hit the boss, then get into a position where you can create a gap right before attacking. Sometimes you don't even need to fully make a gap, as you can move to a spot where you know attacking will make you run towards the boss, as long as it won't make you move into a tornado. Some of the more awkward floor patterns can surprisingly be navigated with careful pathing, followed by using gaps to attack. And that's it, every bit of info I can think of. Now, we'll show some example regular Gauntlet runs, as well as some example Corrupted Gauntlet runs, with the prep potentially played at a faster speed, with some commentary so you can see everything put into practice. Okay, so we're going into the regular Gauntlet here. We see some bats and a spider, and we're trying to kill them as we make our way to any resources. We see a herb is there, and we managed to get the tick manipulation. You can see we instantly get it as we run up to it, because we attacked the monster beforehand, and then had a few ticks to get to it before the instant collection happens. And then we're making our way back, trying to lure them to the entrance as we kill them, but they die very quickly. But I mean, that's just a good thing, so can't complain. And we have an insanely quick time here, like 100 shards, and it was like 9:37 or something as we entered the starting room. Very good. We see some resources here. Fishing is the main one we want. We fill our vial and do the little trick to start fishing right away after we fill it. And once we finish up here, just drop some potions, some tools we don't need, make our potion quickly. Now here we see a Dark Beast, take Avenge, very good. We have a tier 2 weapon, and food seeming okay, so I take Revenge. I go for a herb, but I didn't need it. I think I just forgot I already had it. And then here I'm just kind of exploring, see what we can find, see if we can get more fish. I actually purposely get this one though because I realized my shards count is a bit low. And we did get like 30 shards. I've had about 1 tick we spent gathering that herb, so that was very good. And we got plenty of shards, 74 shards from killing them. The Dark Beasts usually get like 30 to 60, so that was incredibly lucky. And then we go to a thing here that's far away, so that we can, the second thing we run to is close to a boss, so we save some time. We make our tier 3 bow to go along with our tier 2 staff, and we eat up at the same time as we click to attack. We click to eat, then to attack, so we kind of ate while going in. I should have ate sooner, but I kind of forgot. So at the last second, I kind of did a little trick there to eat at the same time I attack and lose no ticks, which is very good. And yeah, now we're just killing the Now we're just killing the Hunlift. I'm using the perp counter to keep up with Hunlift's attacks, because I'm doing 520, you can see here. Do a little punch to get the prey melee. And very important to have good positioning. There was easy because there was no trainers chasing me, but whenever I'm coming up to a melee soon, I always want to try to be close to a boss, especially if I have NATOs chasing me. I want to control my position very well. So yeah, that was a very easy tornado dodge right there. You know, lots of space, only one tornado, nothing too big to worry about. Just focusing on getting ready to redemption, but my prayer is getting kind of low. So At this point, I just eat and drink my prayer potion to get some stats back. Now we're risking super sketchy situations for redemptions, to be honest. And here's just, you know, getting a big gap. We have lots of room to work with, so we don't do anything fancy. Just get a big gap from tornadoes and do our thing. And just make sure we're always ready in case we need to melee. Don't want to be caught, stuck on the other side of a room. And yeah, boss is dying pretty quick, going well. Get a nice little redemption there, very good. Spawn some nails here. Now that nail spawned very close to me. It kind of caught me a little bit off guard, and I kind of didn't quite have enough time to plan out what I wanted to do there. So I had to either miss ticks or eat there after that movement, because I was in a situation where I couldn't quite safely create a gap fast enough. Or if I couldn't think of it quick enough, because when a tornado catches you off guard, it can be tricky sometimes. And now here, we're just finishing off a boss. Getting another redemption, didn't really need it, but figured might as well go for it. I have quite a lot of prayer left and food. And there we go, almost sub 330 even. That is a sub 4, very good. Now let's do another example here. So we go in, see 3 NPCs, very good, that's what we want to see. 1 hit the bat right away, very good. Start fishing, try to set up a tick manip, but we kind of mistimed this. I tried to take off a scepter to start punching it, but I wanted to like take it off and attack it at the same time, but I messed it up. It happens. We just keep going. And here, notice as I kill it, instead of killing it before it moves, I wait and I punch it as it's moving onto a spot. And when it died, it actually dropped the shards on the same tile. So when I picked up the shards, I picked up the shards of the old one and the one that just died as I was moving, saving me a tick of having to pick up multiple shards. And here we see we get herb and we get some fish, do the vial trick once again, and do this little trick to move around the fishing spot while fishing to save some ticks, just because we're a little closer now to where we need to be. We see a bear. So it's alright. Here, I think I forgot I had a tier 2 staff, so I was worried my shark count was very low. So I kind of wanted to see if I could find like a dragon or a dark beast instead. Because with a bear, you have to have at least a tier 2 staff to go for tier 3 halberd. But with 57 shards and a tier 2 staff already made, I was actually going to be fine with however many shards it drops, because it drops at least 30, so. And as you can see here, we see the dark beast, but we've done so much damage. At this point, we just finished off the bear. We have everything we need, more than enough. We only need 80 shards, because once again, it's either 80 or 140 you need 90% of the time. Either depending if you need 1 or 2 tier 2 weapons. So once again, we go to the far cooking thing, and then close up crafting thing. We go in, HP's full, don't have to eat, nice, and we start attacking with our strong weapon. Thankfully it's not praying against melee. And yeah, that was a 134 prep, very good. 145 is all we need, so 134 is amazing. That's very good. And now we just do our, don't even have to do 5 to 1 because we have the halberd with the staff. So it's a bit easier in terms of keeping track, but you do still want to just I recommend still counting. You can see here I'm ready as soon as like it's gonna change. Like I'm counting as if I'm doing 5 to 1, so I know when I will need to get up close and melee, so I'm not caught off guard. Very important. And you know, you do want to try and let your prayer get low for redemption, but once again, not too low. Now we're taking a risk, but suddenly spawns tornadoes. You let your prayer drop by accident, it can really snowball into a bad situation. But yeah, typically you should be able to get 1 redemption off pretty easily, and prayer shouldn't be too much of an issue either, as long as you just do 1 redemption. Going for more than 1 redemption, it can be tricky unless you get them off at very low prayer amounts. Here, I set up a nice little walk there, start up some halberd hits while creating gap, and then just once I was comfortable with the position of the tornadoes, I started that walk. That is how often you'll set it up. And yeah, didn't have a lot of room there, but I could have potentially avoided walking if I wasn't comfortable with walking, either by eating or just kind of running around the boss, but I chose that option. So once you get comfortable with walking, it's really nice for just giving you so many more options. Now here I actually clicked to attack while the floor was still dangerous, and I paffed into it, but thankfully it changed color as I was running into it. I was very close to a PB here, so I was kind of playing a bit more aggressively than I would say you should play. But as you can see here, I mega noodle at the end, and it's still a PB, but it could have been a much better PB. But yeah, another sub 4 example. And now we're gonna move on to Corrupted Gauntlet. Okay, so we're going in to the Corrupted Gauntlet. We see 3 NPCs, very good, and a fishing spot, even better, to take off our scepter so we can take manip and fish quicker while killing the 3 NPCs. Get our shark count up quickly and get some fish that we'll need for later. You can see here, I switched to my scepter once I'm done with the take manip so I can kill them a little quicker. And looking very good. I realized I have 141 shards, like more than enough from a starting room. There's no reason to waste my time to continue killing the low-level NPCs with my slow scepter. So I just move on, make my 2 vials, make my 2 staff, crush my dust, drop the pestilent mortar, and we're good to go. And here, I see some good skill and resources here. I start skilling while manipulating by killing the rat at the same time. And then here I go in a bit indecisive what I want to do here. Whether I want to open up first or check, but yeah, I probably was not the right call to open that up. Probably should have went to the side room first, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference in the end. It was a tough call, because even if there was a demi-boss there, wasn't much I could do in terms of skilling to save time. But here we can see some tier 2 monsters for lots of shards, very good, and we see a dragon, which is perfect. Now while I'm killing it, I go over here just to see what's over here. Now I see we have mining over there. I still need mining and chopping, as well as some more fish. And I decide rather than going that way to check for another demi-boss for double tier freeze, I decide to play it safe here and get the mining that's here, and then try to find chopping and fishing. It was kind of a tough call. Hard to say if this was the right choice, because if there was another demi-boss there, along with mining and other stuff, then maybe that was the right choice. But as you can see here, we got mining and we got fishing. We're doing very good on resources. All we're missing is chopping. So right now we're feeling pretty satisfied with our choice that we made. No chopping here, feeling a little less satisfied, and we find it. So in the end, it was the right call. But with RNG, you never know for sure. But that is a call we made there. Now if you're someone who's less comfortable with a boss, going for a better chance of having double tier freeze may be better, just because it does simplify a boss fight quite a bit. As you can see here, we teleport. Remember, we only need like either 200 or 260 shards usually. In this case, 200, because we only have to make 1 tier 3 weapon. And go to the far away cooking thing first, then a close-up crafting thing. Yeah, we had way more shards than we needed. I meant to make a halberd as well, so that while I'm doing 5-to-1, I can do a halberd hit instead of a punch, but either the game lagged or I misclicked, who knows. Happens. And we go into a boss fight. Ideally with full HP, I think we did, hopefully. And now we're just doing our best to have a nice clean fight. The boss is in a pretty good spot. If he was a bit closer to the corner, instead of having that 2-tile gap on the east side, it'd be a little better for dodging tornadoes, but it is what it is. And have some nail spawn, I could have probably done a little better, but it is what it is. I just ate some food to make up for the awkward situation. I had a chance to make a gap there, but yeah, better to play it safe and sorry in these situations, We're not going for like world record where we're going on mega under-prepped food, so it's okay if we eat sometimes or lose some ticks. And now here, just keeping track of our 5-to-1, ready to be in a good position if we need to melee. Nail spawn, they're all very far away, so I'm chilling. Make sure you get out of here first. I kind of tend to chant my aggressive prayer before my protection prayer. If you're confident in getting your prayer off in time, that is a good thing to do. But only if you're confident you'll get your protection prayer off in time. And you can see there, we position ourselves very nicely to get that punch off while the natives were chasing us to get them to pray melee, because we are counting. And oh, I think I may have messed up there and actually taken a hit off prayer. If I did, just ignore that. Don't be like me. Oh, I think, yeah, the redemption was a bit finicky. Like I said, I mentioned this in the guide, but when you go for redemption, if you try to turn your prayer back on very quickly, sometimes it can be a bit finicky with the game registering your prayers actually been drained to 0. And God, nice cheeky little punch there. It was a bit of an awkward spot, but we managed to position ourselves correctly and get it done. Very good. And we had a ton of space to work with, so dodging nails after that was pretty easy. Nothing to worry about. Usually it's once you get below a third of boss health, that's where it gets very, very tight for the space you have to work with. And nail dodging becomes much more difficult then. So ideally, the better you play early on, and the better your prep is, the more time you can afford to potentially lose or just like eat during that part. As you can see here, we're still not quite at the 30. Oh, I make a mistake here. I went here and got a little trapped, and I even greeted and went for a hit. If I ran right away, I may have been able to avoid taking any damage, but I was potentially going for a PB here. I don't know, or at least a pretty quick run, maybe not PB, so I kind of got greedy there. But yeah, like I mentioned in my guide, never run into a corner like that, because you get that floor pattern and you're screwed. Luckily, we still managed to make it out, but I shouldn't have greeted the hit. I should have played safe and got a little quicker. But it worked out in the end, I survived. Thankfully, the nail didn't hit like a 25. Now we just keep attacking, doing our 5-to-1, waiting for NATOs to spawn. Here they are. So you can see here, I make a gap, attack, and keep moving. And I need a bit more time to make a gap here. So I think I ate some food, and then I wasn't quite ready to attack it. That's okay. Did a bit of a diagonal movement there, because I knew that tile was going to be safe from tornadoes, just because of the way they were moving. And then I kind of was running a bit into the corner, but I was planning to kind of like make my way out afterwards. But I was also thinking that tornadoes are going to despawn soon anyway, so it should be okay. So yeah, it was a bit iffy, that decision, but I was pretty sure, because how long tornadoes last is a set time. So, oh, I almost ran into there again. I was like, no, let's not do it. Let's not do it. Let's leave the area. And yeah, we finished off the boss. Overall, not a perfect boss, but we got it done. Pretty bad RNG, 348 boss time, not ideal. But prep was amazing. 239 prep is just insane. You have such a high chance of getting the time. You have so much time to spare at that point. Anyways, let's do another Corrupted Gauntlet run here. This will be the final example we show. You can see here, once again, seeing 3 monsters, always a very good sign, because you're guaranteed to get a weapon frame by the time you kill all 3. Do a bit of skilling manipulation here. I should have taken out my scepter, but for whatever reason, I was lazy, I guess. And here I try to get the bat, but he moved away. He just baited me, unfortunate. But you can see here, I should have picked up his stuff first instead of going there, but trying to click fast and react to stuff, you make mistakes sometimes, but so far, very good. I killed them kind of far away, it's not the quickest time, you know, 6:57 entering the room, but we got over 100 shards, 4 fish, that's very good. We can make our tier 2 and 2 vials, and we have plenty of fish already. So here I'm kind of indecisive what I want to do. I was like, do I first go in, and do I want to get some monsters over here, but as I do this eventually. So I lost a bit of time, but not a big deal. I grab a herb, because we need 2 herbs. Might as well grab one now while we have a chance. We got lots of fishing spots. I'm like, I'm going to have to take advantage of this. Because while it's nice to, you know, fish while being attacked, you also do want a fishing spot while nothing's attacking you, so that you can do the vial trick and fill up the vials while saving a bit of time. And yeah, I go for some extra fish here, because we're doing really good on prep. I think I probably accidentally got more fish than I intended to, but that's okay. I figure, you know, why not? Prep is going really, really quick right now. Might as well take advantage of that, get more fish than usual to make it a bit safer. Because if prep is very quick, extra fish is actually very useful to increase your chance of success. See here, we see no demi bosses at all, but we have pretty much everything except for mining. We have a lot of fish. We have a tier 2 staff already, so shards are decent, and we have some tier 2 monsters here as well. I don't even pick up the fish here because we already have so much. And 172 shards, we're doing pretty good. So anyway, we already have a tier 2. We're only going to need between actually 140 to 200 shards, depending what we find here for a demi. Because we're only going to need to make 0 to 1 tier 2 weapons instead of the usual. And now I see mining is here, but first I check the room because I do need to find a demi boss. So I'm like, if there is a demi boss here, I can kill it while skilling. And if there isn't, well, I'll just quickly grab this skilling resource. Rather than grabbing those earlier ones, which I wouldn't be able to take advantage of and take manipulation with. And here, I grab this. I already have enough, but I want some extra shards, why not? And as you can see here, we're doing very good on shards now, look at that. We only needed, I believe, 200 in this case shards, but we got almost 300. So we have 98 left over. But yeah, we go here, make all the stuff we need, make our fish. We have so much fish. I even like, even if I'm on 90 HP and it's a bit of a waste, I eat a fish because this is more fish than we'll need. You can see that. That is still like 10 fish left over. And we go into a boss fight, this time with a halberd. And here I was trying to move the boss to put him in the correct spot. I forgot I was wearing the halberd, so I just ran back and forth trying to get to that tile. You can see here, I stand here, like I explained earlier, and I make a move. So now this is the ideal position for dodging tornadoes. It makes things just easier with the spacing you'll have. And you can see here we have a fancy little Wooks Walks up. It's very nice. Whenever you can set one up, it's nice. If you're comfortable with it. If you're not, it's not worth the risk on a good run. But if you are comfortable, it really simplifies tornadoes with a halberd. Then here, just keeping up with our prayer. Not too much going on. It's kind of just AFK when there's no tornadoes and no floor getting in the way. Just kind of chilling. And here we go, some tornadoes. As you can see here, they tend to spawn in the four corners, so be aware of that. But they can spawn pretty close to the middle as well. So always be ready to one-tick react just in case. But yeah, lots of room to work with here. Typically you tend to have a lot of room pre 30%. And especially if you have a Gauntlet in the correct spot here, you have just a ton of space to work with if you do this. Because it's like the whole outer room is just free. It's just this corner is taken up. So it's so good. Yeah, went for redemption, go for another one. Just gotta be careful not to go too redemption crazy. Like if you redemption on like right after drinking a prayer potion, you lose more prayer points when you redemption. Oh yeah, as you can see here, I made a gap. It spawned. I moved once and then attacked because I know I can. And here I'm just keeping gap while attacking. And then I enter a Wooks Walk when I'm confident tornadoes will be safe to Wooks Walk. May have lost a tick there or not because I think I may have been, I can't remember. But yeah, the timing of when I started was a bit off. But that's okay. The important thing is we took no damage. I just continue once again chilling because, you know, not much here. And now once you get to a 30% mark and the floor pattern changes, you can stand on, like I said earlier, these two tiles over here. Those are one of the tiles where I will never have anything spawn underneath me. So it's nice for going for redemptions and stuff, not being distracted. And here you can see here, I made a nice little positioning for myself to be able to Hally safely and just kept using the gap rule to maneuver and keep Hallying. Don't have to always do a Wooks Walk, sometimes just the gap rule will get you through it. And other times you can just eat if you don't want a Wooks Walk or if there's no Wooks Walk option. Just eat, because keep in mind, you know, if you have the food, it costs a bit of time compared to redemption, but it's fine. There's plenty of time to spare with this. And now here, we're mega on pace. I play it safe, I eat up, I get into a good position, and I actually do a bit of a diagonal there as well while setting up this Wooks Walk just to make sure the nail doesn't path onto the tile I'm Wooks Walking onto as we're getting set up, and we finish off a boss. With so much time left, I could have even played even safer, just ate and ran away from tornadoes longer, but I was confident enough to go for that. So for you, it's going to depend how confident you are, what you go for. Because when you have such good pace, you can definitely just play it safe, eat up a bit, run away, until you have a safer position where, you know, because with practice you just get better, you get more aware of how to solve certain situations quickly and not mess up and just get comboed out to a mistake. But yeah, and that is it. That is 2 examples of each. I will also be including in the description a link to the VOD I used for all the clips in this guide, as well as these 4 live examples we just did. It is about a 7-hour VOD of me just doing my best to get as many sub 4s and sub 630s as I can in 7 hours, and I got quite a few. I think like 4 or 5 of each or something, I don't know. Got definitely quite a few corrupt, I think. But yeah, that'll be linked in the description as like a YouTube video, in case you want more examples, as well as seeing like, you know, the runs that don't go well and the resets I do. Because obviously, you know, seeing the best possible runs can be a bit deceiving sometimes. And seeing, you know, the runs that go wrong can be a good learning experience as well. I'll be sure to timestamp as well those videos so you can skip ahead to actual runs, as well as resets, wherever you want to see. But anyways, that is it for this guide. It turned out to be almost an hour. Holy sh... That is how it happens sometimes. Hopefully you've stuck around. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully this has helped you. And yeah, thank you all for watching. Good luck on getting these times. Remember to always play it safe when you have it in the bag. And good luck on those Grandmaster achievements. See you all next time. Look at this hat!